Have you ever caught yourself thinking, better to let it go? It's not worth arguing. I'm bigger than this. How many times have you swallowed the right word, the necessary response, the scream stuck in your throat, just to avoid a conflict? Well, I'm going to tell you something that might hurt to hear. Every time you do this, you betray yourself. We live in a culture that venerates superficial peace. From an early age, we are taught that not confronting is a sign of maturity, that being polite means staying silent when something bothers us, that choosing silence is being superior. It's a lie. Nietzsche saw this with brutal clarity. He understood that much of this virtue you carry is nothing but disguised fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of losing love or approval from others, fear of being seen as difficult, aggressive, or selfish. But I'll tell you, as long as you live to please and avoid conflicts, you will be condemned to swallow your own anger. The philosopher called this the slave morality, a set of values created by the powerless, by the resentful, those who could not react, so they learned to hide behind a facade of humility and submission. And the worst part is that this has become the norm. It has become a model of behavior. Today, you think you are being good, when in fact, you're allowing yourself to be dominated. Stop and think. How many injustices have you tolerated just to maintain harmony? How many times have you stayed silent when you knew you needed to speak? How many times have you swallowed offenses, humiliations, disrespect, all in the name of peace? I'm not here to tell you that you should go around fighting with everyone. It's not about that. It's about reclaiming the right to exist with dignity. Because I'll tell you, if you don't learn to face conflict, it will eat you alive from the inside. Resentment will build up, and one day you won't be able to take it anymore. And then, either you explode in the worst way, or you sink into apathy, convinced that being good means being harmless. But Nietzsche offers a way out, a philosophy that invites you to break this cycle of submission. That shows you how conflict, far from being an enemy, can be a path to your liberation. In this video, we will dive into Nietzsche's ideas about the fear of confrontation. You will understand how this slave morality still shapes your life today, and more importantly, how you can overcome it. Are you ready to hear some uncomfortable truths? Then stay until the end. What you will discover here could forever change the way you see the world and yourself. To understand why you fear conflict so much, you need to go beyond personal experiences and look into the depths of human moral history. And no one has done this more relentlessly than Friedrich Nietzsche. On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche reveals a brutal process. The values you carry today, or that you judge as good, did not arise from nobility of spirit, but from impotence, resentment, and the need for the weak to defend themselves against the strong. Imagine a time when strength was law. Noble men, warriors, did not apologize for their will to power. They dominated, imposed limits, sought their affirmation in the world. Their morality was active, affirmative. Good was that which reflected strength, courage, greatness, self-sufficiency. But there were others, the weak, the resentful. Unable to win in the game of power, lacking the strength to impose their will, they had only one resource left, to turn the game inside out. How? By creating a new morality based on the inversion of values. What was once good, strength, pride, courage, came to be seen as bad, as sin. And what was once weakness, submission, obedience, humility, was elevated to the status of virtue. Not out of a genuine desire for goodness, but out of necessity. It was an act of survival. Nietzsche calls this the slave morality, a morality created not from vibrant life, but from the denial of life. a value system that glorifies retreat, renunciation, passivity, as if they were superior choices, when, in fact, they are unconscious defenses against the inability to act. And you might think that all of this is in the past, but it is not. This morality remains alive. It shapes the education you received. It is in the phrases you heard since childhood. Don't respond, don't argue, be nice, don't cause trouble. From an early age, you were conditioned to associate confrontation with evil and submission with virtue. Every time you remain silent, bow your head, or avoid conflict to maintain the appearance of harmony, you are being governed by this slave morality. But pay attention. This does not mean you are naturally weak or submissive. It means you were taught to believe that being strong, asserting your will, imposing limits, all of this would be wrong. You were indoctrinated to believe that being good is being harmless. The result? A psychological pattern that traps millions of people. Fear of confrontation, fear of taking a stand, fear of claiming your own power. You convince yourself that you are mature by avoiding conflicts, when in fact it is fear that paralyzes you. And the more you flee, the stronger the slave morality becomes within you. But there is another poison in this process. Because the anger you repress does not disappear, it ferments inside you, transforms into resentment, and this will be the theme of our next part. You will understand how resentment is the hidden fuel of this passivity you carry, and how it undermines your life from the inside out. So keep going. The hardest truths are yet to come. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Now that you understand how the morality of the slaves shaped their fear of confrontation, it is time to look deeper into one of the most corrosive feelings it generates: resentment. Nietzsche was a master at dissecting the human soul, and few times was his analysis as relentless as when he described the workings of resentment. In On the Genealogy of Morals, he explains that resentment arises when a vital impulse, the desire to act, to assert oneself, to impose one's will, is frustrated and cannot manifest. But the energy does not disappear. It turns inward, and instead of transforming into action, it becomes poison. The resentful person is one who would like to act but cannot. They would like to confront the aggressor but do not dare. They would like to claim their space but fear the consequences. So they repress this force and begin to construct a moral narrative to justify their passivity. I am better because I do not react. I am nobler because I forgive. I am superior because I do not stoop to argue. But all of this is a lie. Behind this discourse of moral superiority lies an unacknowledged anger, an unprocessed frustration, a powerlessness that rots the soul. And you feel it, even if you do not admit it. Every time you remain silent in the face of an offense and then spend hours ruminating on what you could have said, that is resentment. Every time you see someone abusing your goodwill and instead of asserting yourself, you just accumulate bitterness, that is resentment. Every time you pretend to be at peace but feel a growing bitterness for not being able to defend your boundaries, that is resentment. Nietzsche warns us, the resentful person is not just a victim, they are an accomplice to their own imprisonment. By not confronting conflict when it is necessary, you feed this poison within you, and over time, it destroys you. Resentment creates a vicious cycle. The more you flee from confrontation, the more resentful you become. The more resentful you become, the less courage you have to confront, and thus you sink, slowly, into a state of bitterness and self-pity. The most tragic part: many become accustomed to this condition and begin to define their identity around it. They become voluntary martyrs, proud of their supposed goodness, when, in fact, they are prisoners of their own fear. But Nietzsche did not believe we are condemned to this fate. There is a way out, a path of profound transformation, and it involves cultivating the will to power, the ability to assert your existence without shame, without guilt, without fear. This is what we will talk about in the next part. You will discover how to reclaim this vital force and break once and for all with the pattern of submission. So far, you have seen how the morality of slaves and resentment shape their fear of conflict and imprison their lives. But Nietzsche was not a thinker who was content to merely diagnose the diseases of the soul. He sought paths of overcoming. And the key to breaking free from this prison lies in one of his most powerful concepts, the will to power, Wille zur Macht. It is a concept that has been greatly misunderstood throughout history. Some have reduced it to a desire for domination over others. A gross error. When Nietzsche speaks of the will to power, he is talking about something much deeper, the fundamental drive of life. Everything that lives wants to expand, assert itself, grow, and surpass its own limits. This is the will to power. It is the impulse that drives the seed to break through the earth, the cub to explore the world, the human being to create, conquer, transcend. But the morality of slaves tries to suffocate this will. It says, do not assert your desire, do not stand out, do not confront, do not be dangerous. It wants you to conform to a small, harmless, controllable place. When you repress your will to power, it does not disappear. It corrupts. It turns against you. And then resentment, passivity, and self-pity arise. Recovering your will to power means reconnecting with that vital force you were taught to fear. It means abandoning the illusion that virtue lies in submission. It means accepting that life is conflict, and that conscious confrontation is an act of affirmation, not gratuitous violence. And how do you do this? First, by recognizing that the fear of conflict is not a virtue. It is a vice you inherited and now need to overcome. Second, by starting to take a stand in small things. Learn to say no, learn to set boundaries, reclaim the right to exist fully. Third, by cultivating the courage to face the inevitable conflicts of life with awareness and presence. Not to destroy the other, but to assert yourself in the world. The will to power is not about oppressing. It is about ceasing to be oppressed. It is about living with integrity, with a straight spine, with a free soul. But Nietzsche knew that this transformation does not happen overnight. It requires a deep process, an inner rebirth. And to explain this process, he gave us one of the brightest metaphors in philosophy, the metamorphosis of the spirit. From the camel to the lion, and from the lion to the child. This is what we will explore in the next part. You will discover how to stop being the camel that carries the burden of submission, to become the lion that conquers freedom, and finally, the child that creates new values. Let's continue. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. Link is in the pinned comment. Nietzsche not only revealed to us the hidden poisons of slave morality and resentment, he also left us a symbolic map for the inner transformation that each of us must undertake if we want to break these chains. In the work Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he describes the three metamorphoses of the spirit, the camel, the lion, and the child. It is not just any metaphor, it is an existential roadmap, a path to liberation. Let's start with the camel. The camel is the spirit that carries burdens. It bends under the weight of others' expectations, social norms, and moral obligations imposed by a culture that venerates passivity. You must be obedient. You must be humble. You must swallow your anger. You must avoid confrontation. The camel accepts everything. It is strong in its ability to endure, but this strength is sterile. It is the strength of resignation, not of creation. And to make matters worse, The camel takes pride in its own suffering. The more it submits, the more it believes it is virtuous. This is the stage in which most people live, and perhaps you recognize yourself in it. But Nietzsche does not leave us there. There comes a moment when the spirit of the camel revolts. It can no longer bear the weight of the lies it carries. It desires freedom. It desires to assert itself. And for that, it needs to become a lion. The lion is the figure of the spirit that learns to say no. No to external impositions, no to slave morality, no to social roles that diminish it. The lion is the embodiment of the awakened will to power. But see, the lion does not seek to destroy for the sake of destruction. Its struggle is for space, for an inner territory where it can exist authentically. To conquer this space, the lion must face the greatest of all dragons, the dragon of thou shalt. This dragon shines with 1,000 scales, and on each scale is written a commandment. Thou shalt be meek, thou shalt be submissive, thou shalt avoid conflict. To bring down this dragon requires courage. You will have to face disapproving looks, criticism, rejection. You will have to deal with the guilt that has been internalized in you since childhood. But this is a necessary struggle, because only when you learn to say a genuine and conscious no do you free yourself from the prison of submission. And then comes the last metamorphosis, the child. The child is the reborn spirit, free from the weight of the camel, free from the defensive need of the lion. Now, the spirit is creative. It no longer lives by reacting, but by creating. It creates its own values. It chooses where to submit and where to rebel. It lives lightly, authentically, joyfully. It is at this stage that conflict ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a space for creation. You no longer seek to defeat the other, but to assert yourself according to who you truly are. This is the true rebirth that Nietzsche proposes. But to get there, you need to go through the fire of confrontation. You need to cross the desert of rejection and doubt. You need to break, once and for all, with the fear that keeps you chained. And this leads us to an essential question. How do you discover who you really are behind all these layers of fear and submission? Nietzsche offers us a powerful answer in Ecce Homo, the path of becoming who you are. This is what we will explore in the next part. You will understand why facing conflict is a crucial step in discovering your true identity, and how this journey can transform every aspect of your life. Now that you have understood the process of transformation, from camel to lion, from lion to child, it is time to understand what is really at stake. Nietzsche challenges us with one of the deepest and most provocative ideas of his entire philosophy: becoming who you are. In Ecce Homo, he writes this formula as an invitation and at the same time as a warning. Because becoming who you are is not a natural, spontaneous, automatic process. On the contrary, it is a struggle. And the first battle you need to win is precisely against the fear of conflict. Have you ever stopped to think about how much of your life you live for others? How many times have you chosen the path that would please your parents, your partner, your friends, your boss, even if that was not what you really wanted? How many times have you swallowed your truth to avoid discomfort? Nietzsche shows us that this is the most insidious trap of existence. Most people never become who they are. They spend their lives playing roles, wearing masks, adjusting to expectations, trying to be what they believe they should be. But there is a brutal price for this false harmony. Each time you suppress your true will, a part of you dies. Each time you avoid an important conflict, your identity dilutes a little more. Each time you say yes when you wanted to say no, you move further away from who you really are. Nietzsche understood that the fear of conflict is not just a behavioral problem. It is an existential obstacle. Because conflict is the field where identity is forged. It is in the clash with the world, with others, with ideas, that you discover what you truly value, what you truly believe, what you truly desire. Without conflict, there is no self-knowledge. Without self-knowledge, there is no authenticity. Without authenticity, there is no full life, just an empty theater. Therefore, becoming who you are requires the courage to face the necessary confrontation, saying no to others' expectations, saying no to the roles imposed on you, saying no to your own tendency to adapt in exchange for acceptance. But there is more. Nietzsche reminds us that this path is profoundly individual. There is no ready-made model for who you should become. There is no universal morality that you must follow. You must create your own path, your own values, your own way of living. And that is frightening, because without the rules of the herd, you are alone. And at first, it hurts. You lose applause. You lose the illusion of security. But in exchange, you gain something infinitely more valuable: the possibility of living with integrity. Each conflict faced with awareness is a step on this path. Each boundary imposed with clarity is an act of affirmation. Each time you speak your truth, even trembling, even with fear, you take a step toward yourself. Nietzsche does not promise us comfort. He promises us the chance to live as authentic individuals, and that is worth more than any social approval. But for that, it is necessary to accept an uncomfortable fact: silence in the face of injustice, in the face of abuse, in the face of oppression, is not virtue, it is complicity. And that is what we will talk about in the last part of this video. You will understand why the silence, which you may have cultivated as a sign of kindness, actually feeds everything that oppresses you, and how to break, once and for all, with this cycle. Now that you've made it this far, it's time to face a truth that many prefer to avoid. Your silence has a price, and it's not a small price. How many times have you told yourself that staying silent was the wisest choice? That it wasn't worth fighting? That it wouldn't change anything? That it was better to let it go? How many times have you swallowed humiliations, disrespect, small and large abuses, all in the name of supposed harmony? But here's the reality. Every time you choose silence in the face of injustice, you are not being neutral. You are reinforcing the behavior that oppresses you. You are teaching the world that you accept being treated this way. You are allowing patterns of domination, abuse, and disrespect to continue existing within your life and in society as a whole. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He knew that a morality built on fear does not lead to peace. It leads to the degeneration of the spirit. When you remain silent to avoid conflict, you do not build a better life. You build a tomb for your will. And don't be fooled. The world notices this. People can tell when you are afraid to assert yourself. And those who act in bad faith take advantage of it. The silence you think protects you actually exposes you. Every unspoken boundary is an invitation for someone to cross it. Every unspoken truth is an opportunity for lies to take hold. Nietzsche teaches us that an authentic life requires courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act even when fear is present. Conflict, when necessary, is a field where integrity asserts itself. It is where you show yourself and the world that you have a backbone, that you have values, that you have limits. So, the next time the impulse to stay silent arises, ask yourself, am I really being wise, or am I just being cowardly? This question, if asked honestly, can change your life. And remember, becoming who you are does not happen in complacent silence. It happens in the courageous affirmation of your own existence, in the necessary confrontation, in the inevitable conflict. You were not made to be an eternal camel carrying the burden of others. You have within you the lion and the child. You have within you the strength to say no and the creativity to build a life that is truly yours. But this requires action, and it requires that you start now. If this video spoke to you, if any part of it resonated within you, I want you to comment down below. Say, "I choose to no longer remain silent." Write that down, because putting this decision into words is already a first step to making it real. And don't stop here. Continue the journey. The next video is just as important as this one. It will help you deepen this transformation process you have started. See you there.